I'm here in the Hollywood Hills with Jeff Perlis. We met in New York about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we met at the Commercial Theater Institute as a fellow producer and also an entrepreneur. I thought that was really cool because out of the people in the room, we were able to connect not just on, say, the idea of making theater or theatrical production together, but we were also connecting on the fact that you have a business, not just in, well, you have multiple businesses. You have one in real estate, you also have one where you actually will teach people a lot of the concepts of self-improvement that actually have paralleled what we teach within Real Social Dynamics in terms of like networking and self-improvement and sales. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your story and a little bit about what you're doing in terms of real estate seminars, your production, your idea of investing.
Great, yeah, I would love to. And first of all, thank you for having me. It's fun to make the connection and then continue the connection, because to me, that's sort of the magic of networking. It doesn't do any good to meet people and then never have a follow-up. So,
well, I thought it'd be fun for you to come today also, because today we're having a musical production meeting.
Which is perfect.
It's kind of a casual one. It was not like I have my full team here, but we'll have about a dozen of our people here just to hang out, share ideas. I flew in our friend Voltaire from Hamilton, and also a general manager who works with Ken Davenport from Kinky Boots and Godspell. So it'd be cool to like network with these people, and it's also some of the other people from the music industry. I thought that'd be kind of fun for you, just as you know, upcoming producer.
Well, it's part of living the dream. I mean, it's when you ask, what am I up to, and how do I tie these things together with my background with real estate, with training entrepreneurs around the world, etc. It's really a question of what is my passion and how can I meet people like you that are living parts of what I love to do, and then being able to take that network and spring forward it to getting to meet other people. And hopefully the idea is that the only way that I'll keep bringing more people in that do what I love to do is if I keep adding value.
Well, I'd love for you to share basically somewhat of your entrepreneurial journey.
Okay.
How you became an entrepreneur and what are you focusing on right now?
Okay, great. So how I became an entrepreneur was, it was more from what I didn't want to do. When I was young, I didn't know what I did want to do. I just knew I wanted to work for myself. My parents were both self-employed. My mom was an interior designer, worked for herself. My dad was a manufacturer's rep. And so I got used to people making their own hours and not having caps on their incomes, and mostly having their time to themselves. And that became really important to me. And when I was 18 years old, my girlfriend and I decided that we wanted to get away from Pennsylvania. It wasn't that we had a place to go to, but we wanted to get away from and sort of find our own place in the world, our own way of supporting ourselves. And so the entrepreneurial venture began with literally working our way cross country. Like, I would be coming here, I'd see somebody working in your yard, and I'd say, do you need help? You know, so I was always offering to be of value. And then I ran down a number of different paths. I did everything from being an independent contractor, selling security systems, burglar and fire alarms, training materials for corporations on communications training, presentation skills, all that type of thing. I taught at San Diego State University for the professional development department. So I've done a lot of different things, and 27 years ago I moved. I wanted to live in a small town in the trees, so I moved to a place called Lake Arrowhead. That's, you know, I live in a forest, so it's wonderful, and decided that the way to get what I wanted was to start my own company. So I started a real estate company 27 years ago, and that's a lot of what I've been doing. And in the last few years, I had a very dear friend of mine die suddenly of pancreatic cancer. And it made me look at what are the real priorities? Like, how do I really want to spend my day? And luckily I have the time and money freedom to do that. And one of the things that came up was I love Broadway theater. I love Broadway musicals. And said, okay, I'm going to go pursue that. And how could I bring my skills to that? Producing would be probably the best way, because as a singer, a dancer, and an actor, I wouldn't make it on Broadway. So, yeah. And I've done a lot of training with, luckily I've met people like yourself that are at the top of their game. People that, yesterday, for example, have you ever heard of the inner game of tennis? the book called The Inner Game of Tennis, or Inner Golf, Inner Skiing,
No, but I've
Inner Work.
definitely studied inner game, as that's a core principle for us.
Tim Galway is the guy that started the whole inner game in the 70s. And 2 days ago, I had the pleasure of meeting him, and then he invited me to spend the day with him yesterday. Nice. So it's fun to keep meeting the masters and saying, you know, what is it that makes you so great at what you do? What is your theory? And how can I combine those theories with other people that I've met? How did you get, I mean, how did you get into all this entrepreneurial stuff?
I got into this because I was really interested in figuring out ways where, as a kid, as a teenager, I could make money. So I started, like you, hustling early, going door to door. But my door to door wasn't going to people's houses to do chores. It was going door to door down the street when people didn't have websites, and trying to give people a website. In exchange, they would give me horseback lessons or money, or they would give me clothes from a famous suit retailer.
Sure.
And I got good to the point where then I started working for companies, Intel, the governor's office, and even UPS when they were known as Fritz before they merged. Working on programming allowed me to basically open up all these internships. Now my whole company was designed from lessons that people learned from internships from my company. We've had, at one time, 200 simultaneous interns working 20 plus hours a week for free, but learning skills, and that's really how we shaped the whole sculpture, what turned into our company. And I created my first non-website company when I was 18. I was a teenager, but I passed the Series 7 in 63, 65, became a registered investment advisor, and then I used those skills to kind of refine the art of cold approaching and networking to get sales, but it was sales for investments, a combination of institutional investments and regular investments, but mostly IRAs, retirement plans. Right. In fact, when I created this company, I was doing it solely for the focus of learning my social skills, because I was so wrapped in academics. And even now I am. I'm in college now 15 years, you know. Well, at the same time, it turned into a business because we were financing our lifestyle. Since I didn't have time to focus on finance or making financial investment sales, I was focusing now on networking and meeting girls and learning how to attract them, and the inner game, outer game, and physical game were involved with all these concepts. And so as we grew, we had people that relied on us. As a result, I had to spend my time helping them so they can continue to grow and allow them to continue to build their relationships. Yeah. You know, and a lot of what we teach, we were talking earlier at the bar in New York about how a lot of what we teach is things that are directly applicable to networking. So now I'm building a YouTube channel about the parallels between game in terms of what people do in picking up girls, and business and networking. Right. I see a lot of that in terms of, you know, the concept of how people are offering value to the world, their mindsets for that. And coming from the standpoint where you're not expecting anything, but you're just giving value to other people and trying to find connections where you can help other people. Yes. And it always comes back to you. And also the lack of dependence on a particular outcome when you're engaging with other people, because you're more likely to get a positive outcome when you lose your dependence on an outcome. Because now you're not relying on something or trying to act a certain way. You're kind of just speaking what's on your mind and making things happen. And also in terms of like the ability to just take action, get field experience, and not be concerned about rejection or losing who you are or not getting the results you want. Yeah. I think a lot of that kind of parallels with what you're teaching, but I'm curious about what your core principles are and how you're training entrepreneurs.
Great, it's a great question, and what I think it's funny, when I think about the chores I did as a kid versus the things that you did as this young entrepreneur. When I was a kid, we didn't have the internet, so it's one of those age gap kind of things. So as far as some of the core principles about networking is, we look at how do you leverage, because leverage is one of the keys, as you know, leverage is one of the keys to everything, is how do you leverage an opportunity when you're networking. So we had, I don't know, 100 people in our class, but we found each other. And it's who are the people in the room? How do you find the people in the room that are the influencers in the room? And if you can spend your time, instead of just meeting lots of people. A lot of people go for quantity, I go for quality. That's, you know, it's like I watched you, and basically I like to be a learner. So I observe a room and I see who's really engaged, and those are the people I want to meet. And when I saw you talking to that woman at the cocktail party, I thought, that's the guy I need to go meet.
Yeah, and I was talking to the woman, by the way, not to pick her up, just in case my wife's watching this.
Not at all.
I was doing it to network.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you were engaged in a very strong business conversation when I walked up.
Well, she was involved with Disney theatricals.
Okay.
And her friend was a director with a feminist spin, and we're working on our story that involves a lot of feminists. I wanted to get her opinion. In fact, what happened was last weekend I even flew her down to Vegas to meet my wife and her friends and also talk about what we were working on, get her feedback.
Yeah, and again, that's part of the follow-up. What you're very good at is, it's not just make the connection, it's fly them to Vegas to do whatever you need to do. And it's a question of, you know, what I find that's most valuable is being able to show up. Like, you know, a lot of times people go, how do you meet so many people? Well, I just keep showing up, and I say yes a lot. When people offer to do something like today, I say yes, and I figure out a way to do it. And I put the priority of the people and the time first, as opposed to all the other things that I could be doing. And I say, where is the best leverage as far as how can I learn more? And it always comes from learning. If I go as a knower, it doesn't work anywhere near as well as I go as a learner.
I like that. I also like the whole yes principle, because I believe that was the #1 thing for me, is also the yes thing. It got to the extreme of the point where it wasn't necessarily healthy, because I had a situation where I said yes to anything and everything for about 2 to 3 years. So if someone invited me to dinner, I might have 4 dinners to go to, and I'd show up to each one for like 15 to 30 minutes, one after another. But I showed my face.
I call that Thanksgiving. People would invite me, because I'm single, and people would invite me to Thanksgiving. You know, clients of mine would invite me to Thanksgiving and say, I would love to come. They go, Jeff, we know you probably have 3 or 4 invitations and you're going to all of them. I go, you're right. So I can come for before dinner, then I'm going for dinner, then I'm going for dessert, and then I'm going to go to the other people's house just to visit. And luckily I live in a small town that's very easy to get around. So yeah, I understand. Yeah,
I was doing that here in LA. So when I come to LA, it's like a constant feast of networking where every hour random people show up. And that's kind of weird, but when I go to Vegas, it's actually my chill time. It's ironically like because there's not as much business developed there yet. So as a result, when I come here, you'll get invitations. And I feel like because I have a habit of always having said yes, it kind of creates this momentum where I feel like I have to just now invite a lot of people to hang out at the same time just to make sure I'm staying in touch with all these people. But at the same time, it's kind of cool because it allows me to help my friends create these random collisions of innovation and shared value. And it's not even like, it just kind of happens naturally. People who are working in a similar world, if I just put them together, they just come up with their own ways they could connect and add value to each other.
What we call the processional effect. It's like, you know, we have this concept that I learned from Buckminster Fuller that says, you know, why does the bee go to the flower? And the bee goes to the flower for
pollen.
Pollen. The bee goes to the flower because they're attracted to the flower naturally, the colors, etc., and they go for the food. They go for the nectar, and the pollen happens as a processional effect. And they fly away, and as they fly away, the pollen then drops to the ground and as a byproduct, cross-pollinates everything and gives us all the growth. And so we look at how do we take, or, you know, this is part of what we teach, is how do we have people just get involved in something as a learner and trust the processional effect that you're going to have this collision of people, you know, purposely create a collision and then see what happens out of it. You're a great experimenter.
Yeah, well, you are as well. I mean, you're the one who walked up and approached me and started the conversation. I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
But I guess it's interesting because at that event, a lot of people who are just used to collaboration. So I was impressed on how quick and how active pretty much everyone at the Commercial Theater Institute was just networking with each other continually.
It was a powerful group of people, and it was not only a great class, but just the social side of it, that whole networking opportunity. It seemed like people really were engaged at a way higher level. And I think part of that is we were all there for a passion. We weren't there just because we're trying to meet people. We're there for us individually, and then we're sharing the passion with others. The other thing I wanted to mention that I think might be helpful is I have two favorite questions that I love to ask people, which really, and they come from that beautiful, like I have the chills right now when I even think about asking, is the two questions I love to ask people is, what do you need? And whatever they say they need, I go, how can I support you? And people are not used to having people that are really there for them, and I'm genuinely there for them. And I think that from a networking standpoint, it's, if I'm networking and I'm looking to get versus networking and looking to give, it's a whole different dynamic.
I also think people will mirror that kind of attitude, because now when you're offering such a great mindset, people want to reflect how you're treating them. And so if they feel like you're coming from that attitude, they're going to want to mirror that.
Yeah, and I learned recently, we have a project I'm doing with 6 other partners, and it's all about measuring how interested people are versus how interesting people are. And I mean, think about it. How does it feel to you when you have somebody that's interested in what you're doing?
Well, one of the things I think is that when you are really interested in other people, you are more interesting to that person as well.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah. But I think that one of the things I thought was interesting was that so many of the people in that room came from backgrounds that were very much outside the theater world.
Including
And
me.
especially
Including
me too,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that out of all the things you could do, I mean, the musical world, even when I mentioned this to the people on my board or even our client base of what we're doing, it just seems so insane to them. It just is so outside of reality, they can't even comprehend it.
Yes.
So I'm curious about how you're interested in what you're doing to invest your time to get into that space.
Great question, and again, it's a question of what's the processional effect from what we did, because I would imagine there's a number of people that go to courses, you know, 100 and some people that went to our course. How many of them have actually taken any action? So one of the things that I made sure to do was the speakers that came, who were so generous with their time and came to help us out, I made sure that the ones that I felt really connected with, I made sure to go and meet them. And get their contact information. And I sent them all a thank you note for their generosity of their time, and offered again, what do you need? How can I support you? And I've heard back from a few already, and one of the projects, I've already been invited to be a co-producer on a show that's coming out in the fall called M. Butterfly. It's the remake of Madame Butterfly. And
M. Butterfly with David Henry Hwang?
Yes, and it's and Clive Owen has signed on as the lead for it for an undetermined amount of time. He's not limiting his amount of time. But my point is that it's really, you ask, you know, how am I continuing this on? How am I taking this class and actually doing something with it? One of the things, and I found it very valuable, is when I offered to help, people were really willing to help me. And I know Tony's season is coming up, so a lot of these people are really busy.
You going down for that?
You know, it's interesting, I may do that. I
know that I got something in the mail. I don't know if everyone from CTI got it. Did you get it?
I did not.
So there was...
or not yet.
So maybe it's because I won a charity buzz auction for the people from the American, I can't remember what it was called, the Broadway League, an American Theater Wing. And one of the auctions I won was actually to get our script reviewed by David Henry Hwang, who wrote as a playwright M. Butterfly.
Right.
You know, I thought it was an interesting coincidence that you.
Well, and it's interesting because I'm already in the process. I've never had to raise money for anything before. Everything I've done, I've either had you know, if I were buying a piece of property and a client would say, gee, Jeff, can I buy it with you? I never had to raise money. And so now, being a Broadway producer, one of the big things I learned is you got to raise a lot of money. And so I'm out learning from Lynn Twist, if you're familiar with The Soul of Money. She wrote a book called The Soul of Money. And she has a great program called Fundraising from the Heart, which is the only way I know how to do anything. And so I'm taking that program to say, how can I go out and raise the funds necessary to be a viable, valuable addition to this team who's going to be doing the producing of M. Butterfly.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a musical on Broadway?
Well, M Butterfly itself is a straight play as opposed to a musical. The musical version of it is Miss Saigon.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know I've seen also the movie that they made as well, and I also saw Miss Saigon when I was out there on the Monday after CTI. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I know a little bit of the story about what you're doing, but I guess they're trying to revive it, kind of like they did with Miss Saigon.
Well, since it's a true story, M Butterfly is a true story. What they're going to do is they're going to update, now that it's been 20, 25 years since it was originally written, they're going to go back and update the real lives of the real people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's my understanding of what they're doing.
Same playwrights, same producers?
As far as I know, well, there'll be producers for the show. I mean, I didn't produce the original one, but I'm one of the people that will get involved in that whole process. And it's so fun. Again, one of the big things, and I can't stress it enough, is how much I love being a learner. And so now I'm getting to learn yet again, something new, producing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, also, if you're free on, I think it's May 22nd, I'm going back to New York for the Obie Awards.
Okay. You know. Who knows? I'm actually supposed to be here on the 20th, but it doesn't mean I can't be here and fly to New York.
Yeah, I'm flying there on the 20th myself because I went to Charity Buzz also and won an auction to get tickets to see Indecent, which I heard about for the first time on CTI.
I guess I need to go to Charity Buzz.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then one of the parts about it is that we get a backstage pass. Most of actually the auctions I've been bidding on are theater related, just so I could network and add value to the people in the theater, and it's allowed me to get invitations to like the Obies.
So let me ask you, what's the vision? Because people are asking me, and I'm curious for you. What's the vision for you? Like when you took the course, I mean, obviously you've done very well in lots of different businesses, and you have a whole thing with Harvard and law school. And what's the vision for you about Broadway?
I wanted to. We make a lot of videos as part of our narrative. And one of the things that we do that makes it so that our client base engages with us in a way that is kind of unique, interactive, and not as easy replicable, is that we have live interactive events. Now, what I wanted to do at first was just integrate into our already existing seminars, music and theater, and adding entertainment to our already existing information education, so it's more infotainment.
Right.
Then I came up with the idea, though, of making a standalone, because as we started getting into the process of building music, making music videos, I realized that a lot of it's really epic. We haven't even released anything to the public yet, but I think it's really cool. And then we started networking with people from the music, dance, from theaters, mostly people in the Hollywood world. My connections in New York are much more recent. And it turned into a situation where it just became really cool because we had such an awesome team. And some of the people are here today. We flew a couple dozen people down to see Hamilton, and we had a production meeting in San Francisco. And the innovation that was created just put my mind in so many different directions. It basically created a situation where I saw a vision where we could put our narrative out there in a very unique way that our customers would like. I could see us having events that build up towards a standalone and doing it throughout a process of us releasing more videos, because we're really already amazing at that. I mean, every day of the week we release 1 to 2 hours of video content, and then adding music to it, and then making it integrate into our already existing events, eventually having a standalone and growing from there. But taking those baby steps throughout the process is kind of like how I envision things. But I could see it as opposed to a situation where you have this situation where you're building a standalone for a market. We kind of already have a market, and we're trying to build a product that our already existing market will like, and grow it, and have a chance to really convey not just a story, but also educate our client base about our story, and while educating them about things that actually be useful to them.
Well, and especially since your story keeps evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so I'm going to ask you the questions. So, what do you really need? I mean, you have lots going on. What do you really need?
Well, I love the opportunity that you came down here to do an interview and network and have a chance to connect. And I mean, I think that's really cool, because even when we were just hanging out, just having cool networkers like yourself, you were already introducing me to producers and all sorts of things like that. I thought that was really, really cool of you. And I said, you know what, this guy knows how to network, knows how to add value, and he just has a good positive attitude. And having people like yourself in my world is pretty awesome.
Cool.
You know, even my company.
So anytime, just as you think about it, as things come up, just let me know how I can support you.
How about you?
So right now, I don't have a need for me, but I have a need because one of the people from CTI, I don't know if you're on the Google network from the CTI group, but somebody's looking for somebody like you that has connections because they even though they went to be a producer for Broadway, they have a project for film right now.
Oh.
And I was thinking, if you don't know about it, I'm going to tell them, or I'm going to offer to you to say, hey, if you want to contact them, it may be a good opportunity.
Sure, invite them, tell them they can come over to the house. That'd be awesome.
I will.
Love making new friends.
I will show you. I will show you the emails and see what you can do.
Yeah, I'm definitely not on any of that.
Good.
I didn't even know that existed until you told me about
there
it.
You go.
You know?
Yeah, that's sharing.
That's awesome, bro.
Yeah, we call it, you know, giving is having more. So.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll take you inside. I'll show you our outline. You can meet some of our people,
Cool.
have some good food, and hang out and chill. But
Great.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers.